All right, ladies. Well, this is a very special edition of the Hue Crew because I want to really welcome Diane Roussin here from a very special organization. I'll let Diane talk about that a little bit, but we always do this.
Yes.
Diane,
Cheers.
a little cheers.
Cheers, ladies.
Cheers. Cheers to good conversation, good stories, and just getting to know you, and you get to know the Hue Crew. So thank you, Francine, for coming.
My pleasure.
Yes,
My pleasure
yay.
again. Thank you for having me.
No. And Shayna, welcome back home. Yes.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, I know. So we're missing, I know, Rana and Susie, both away out of town, but that's what jobs and careers do, right?
Absolutely.
Right, Diane?
Yep.
Okay, so Diane has a very, very interesting, I guess, can I call it a business? Can I call it an organization?
Yeah, you call it an endeavor, a project. Yeah.
It's sort of what we do, a platform.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's called the Winnipeg Boldness Project, and you are project manager. So the girls are nodding their heads. What is Winnipeg Boldness Project?
Give us some info. I like bold.
Yeah, well, it is a platform. It's a social research and development project, and so we're looking at what are the things that can be done to make it better for young children or babies, the 0 to 6 years age category. We're really centered in a particular neighborhood in Winnipeg, affectionately known as the North End, but the formal name is the North Point Douglas neighborhood is where we are. And the platform is really trying to center community wisdom, really trying to center Indigenous wisdom in all of what we do. And when we're looking at what does it take to make it better for babies, we're prototyping really cool ideas that the community has come up with, and then we're trying to figure out how to scale those things. And so that's why we call ourselves a social lab, and that's what social labs do. They prototype and they scale, and they try to address really complex situations that we face. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it's lots of fun.
But I find it so interesting, or maybe, well, a little bit funny, as now you're saying we're, like a social lab, and it's like the incubator, we have incubator way for all these jobs or crazy businesses, but when you're looking at it, Diane, this is like centuries, this is like history, family, raising kids.
Yeah.
And it's interesting now, so there is a concept of building a community around the child. Yeah. So explain a little bit now on what that all means.
Yeah, I guess like we talk about being child-centered and putting children at the center of all of what we do, and so we certainly are trying to do that at the Winnipeg Boldness Project. There's a lot of resources, there's a lot of services, programs that families can access, but at times our families are telling us that they're very challenging to access, and so that's where we get into these complex situations that our families are facing. And so when we think about, well, what can we do to make it better for kids, families have a lot of wisdom about what can be done and how we might center the child in all of what we do, because a lot of those systems and services actually don't center children, and they don't really center families. I know it's hard to believe, but it's somebody somewhere who decides there's got to be this service, and so they just go ahead and create it and design it, and then present it to families. And when it doesn't work for families, there isn't a lot of opportunity to change it up or to iterate or to change. And so that's what I really like about the platform of the Social Lab, is that it's a place for experimentation, it's a place for taking risk, it's a place for trying things on, it's a place for emergence and iteration. And so our families tell us where to start, and then we start co-creating prototypes from there. Yeah, and then the families are the ones who are actually testing the prototype. So they're giving us, these real-time feedback loops and saying, that works, nope, that doesn't work, this works, that does not work. And so we're able to kind of adjust and change the prototype in real time as families are telling us.
When you say that it's a place and that it's hard to access for some, is it a physical location that people can go to, or is it a program that you...
Well, the Boldness Project itself is located in the North End. So we do have a physical office, but we go throughout the whole North End and to where families are. So we find ourselves in a lot of community resource centers. Yeah, places where families normally and naturally are is where we'll find ourselves quite often. So and so the systems can be anywhere. I mean, that the families are trying to access things either online or trying to go physically into a building, or just trying to get resources for them and their kids. And there's a lot of barriers, like quite a few barriers. One example I'll give you just to give it a concrete.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are
You
some
know,
of
we
them?
have one of our prototypes is looking at education, and so what can we do around some educational endeavors? And so looking at RESPs, like savings plans. And so families are really wanting to save money for their kids and wanting to access these federal sort of savings plans that we have. And one of the biggest barriers to accessing it is obtaining a birth certificate. And so the whole process of getting a birth certificate, I can take you down a rabbit hole there, but there's a lot of challenges in obtaining a birth certificate.
And you would think that you're born here, it should be so easy, like that, but it's not, and that's crazy. So from
So for some people, I think it's pretty challenging. There's a cost barrier. There's a time barrier. You know, there's when you're if you live a mobile lifestyle, you know, having a fixed address can be a barrier. It's, again, I could take you right down the rabbit hole, but when you're born, you know, you're registered, and that's a different sort of format and piece of paper and a different database. In order to obtain a birth certificate, you got to go into that registry, and so sometimes if the information doesn't match up, there's a whole
So it's not you have your child in the hospital, you get this envelope with all the application forms that you need to get it done. That's not how it works.
Yes, you do. But you know, if you have children, so you've just had children.
But he was born in Vancouver, so I was actually physically given an envelope.
Yes, and there's probably 30 pieces of paper in that envelope.
It was overwhelming.
Oh my goodness.
So you may or may not fill that stuff out before you leave the hospital, right? You know, and then you're at home, and so things get lost in the translation too. So. Yeah, so that's one. Like there's lots and lots of barriers, and so we're finding that when our families are going through the prototypes, they're identifying stuff like that to us, and saying this is the thing. You know, I can deal with this thing, and this thing, but that one, I need help to deal with that.
That's so valuable because I mean, you guys are going to the heart of the pain points, right? You're not saying what do we think would make stuff better, but rather let's stop being reactive, kind of. Right?
Responsive.
And responsive. Thank you. You know, and really say like, what are the core issues? How can we help? And what solutions can we put on the table? I love that.
Awesome.
I love that.
And I think more and more our families will identify things that they would like for their own individual capacity. And I always run to Pareto's rule on that and say about 20-25% of the time our families are asking for something that will better their individual capacities. 75% of the time they're identifying barriers, systems barriers.
Well, and you've dealt with so many of them. I just want to interject because on your website, there is a great graph and sort of like, to me, explained so much more on what building a community or a child-centered community. So there's the child in the middle of the graph, this round circle, and then right around the whole child, the very first one is the parent, the caregiver, the person that is dealing with this child day in and day out. And then on the periphery, on the outside, are like, well, the community too is involved there. But on the very outside, it's all the bureaucratic people that we would think that would be immediately the first people that are helping. And it's truly not, because like you said, they don't know what's happening. And these people are making all these decisions for them. And when things don't work, then
there's no real
crumbles.
opportunity
There's
to
no
change it.
There's lack of jobs, you know, there's no food. I mean, the whole list goes all the way down. So,
and I think too, when that is not your day-to-day life, right? We don't think about what are the challenges that people like 20 minutes away from us right now are faced with, right? We're not thinking, just like you were saying, like, I haven't even birthed a child, so I didn't even know you get this envelope. I'm not looking forward to that.
and wait, she lives in the States, so you're going to get a huge one.
Oh, goodness. No, I'm going to come here, have the baby, and go back there. But, you know, I think that we're not really considering the challenges that other people are having. And just like you're saying, some of these decisions are being making on such a higher level, whereas you're like, it's so easy to go get your birth certificate. It's so easy to go and do this. Yeah.
Is this a free service?
Well, the project, we're a not-for-profit organization. And so, but because we're centered in that neighborhood and we center the voices of the folks that are in that neighborhood, you know, they kind of give us the mandate, they give us the priority, they tell us the areas that we need to be working on. And so, it's free to them, absolutely.
So it would help them get those documents and all that kind of stuff, like get their ducks in a row.
Well, they tell us what the issues are. We then go out, and so the other piece of this, there's a strong collaboration aspect to social labbing, and so really pulling on the multi-sectoral disciplines, and so when families, like that 75% where there's barriers, we need to then develop partnerships to be able to address those barriers.
Right.
So we'll go to the corporate community, we'll go to the philanthropic community, we'll go to government, you know, we'll go to all kinds of folks who we think can help us change the systems so that families can access them better.
Perfect.
Right? So that's part of what the lab
And
does.
has the reaction been amicable now? Like going to these bigger corporate organizations, are they, you know, realizing it, and are they helping?
Absolutely. I do believe that everyone wakes up every single day with really good intentions, and that we all wake up thinking, you know, today we're going to go do our things, and, you know, those things usually are about making the world a better place.
Right.
So I think that everyone has really good intentions. And so you just have to tap into that intention. And I think people want to help and they want to be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't always know how they can help or how they can be a part of it.
Right.
And so when our families are telling us we need X, Y, Z, it's pretty easy to say, this is what they need and this is the piece
It's
that we
coming
can,
from
directly
from them.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What can we, as fellow Manitobans, fellow Winnipeggers, what can we do to help?
I think it all starts with awareness. So just in that birth certificate issue I gave you, lots of people just assume we all automatically get birth certificates, right? They just assume that, and I probably would have assumed that at one point too. So I think awareness raising about, you know, you know, when you said you went to the website, right?
Yes,
just
I know.
Even just trying to learn about different things. I think really thinking about this concept of person-centered design. I think corporate community knows about customers always right. And so it's a similar thinking, right? You put families and children at the center, and they get to identify the issues, they get to identify the problem. Not many of us, I don't think, naturally think that way, right? And so I think you have to stretch yourself a little bit. I am a big believer. I'm Indigenous, and so this lab also centers Indigenous wisdom, and very much a very core value within Indigenous wisdom is the value of relationships. So I'm a big believer in forming relationships. So reach out
for sure
and talk to people that you don't normally talk to.
Yes.
And it takes community, right? So
and just it takes
case in point.
Risk. It takes
for sure.
courage, you know, to talk to people who you don't normally talk to. You don't understand what they're saying or how they talk. You know,
Okay, so I have a question.
languages.
I have a question. Because I think a lot in the city we've been having conversations about inclusion and diversity, these hot button words.
Yeah.
Okay? All of this is my feelings on it. But which is a great initiative, right? But I think that there's also some people who are like, how do I approach somebody with that conversation? How do I actually start it? How am I not offensive, right? In that. So from your personal take, right? Because obviously your opinion is not everybody's opinion. But from your opinion, how can people start the conversation?
Well, and what I was just saying, for me, it all starts in relationship. And so just reaching out and trying to form a relationship with somebody that you wouldn't normally have a relationship with, I think is like that. There's so much to be said about that. Like it sounds simple, but it's really hard to do. And I find that, because I've done that and others have done that with me. And I find that as that relationship develops and as it becomes a more stronger relationship, way more trust is there, and you can actually have the really hard conversations in really strong, trusting relationships.
So I also want to talk to Diane. There is also a video on your website. It was about dads, and that really struck a chord for me. Is because yes, we've been talking about women and what the Hue Crew is and what we're all doing in empowerment, and you know, it's always about the women, and we think about that with family, but the dads are really like the lost piece of the puzzle that really doesn't get a lot of attention to. So the project was really cool.
Well, you talked about the centering of children, and so, and I was relating that to my Indigenous value base and my worldview, and so, you know, putting children at center, but realizing that children don't live in vacuums, right? They live in families, they live in communities, they live in neighborhoods, right? And they live in different types of families to that. And so building out those centric circles, right? And all the supports in all of those circles. So we're always looking at like, what is a holistic approach to what does it take for children to thrive? And we need all of the adults in our lives, including men and women. And I think that what we've experienced in the North End, or what I've experienced throughout my career, is how systems actually systematically kind of cut men out of that family unit, like, you know, in terms of what is the housing policy that
Right.
doesn't allow men, or what is the social assistance policy that only allows one income in a family. You know, there's all these things that sort of separate out men.
Yeah.
And so this prototype, it was looking at what role do men play in the lives of children, and how can men help children to thrive. And so we went to the men and asked lots and lots of men about that question. And they just, you know, the community wisdom that blossomed out of that was amazing. So the video you saw was the guys talking about what they need and what role they want to play, and the things and supports that they need to be able to play that role. And it was so sophisticated and so wise, and some of it's so simple in its sophistication, you know.
And it actually reminds me too, there's commercials on TV that says, just take time to be a dad, and you see like the dad with the child. So that reminds me of that. So I think that's a really cool trend actually starting, right? For the dads to take time to be a dad and voicing the men's opinion. I like that. There's a lot of single dads out there too. Like there really is.
But
I'm
I
a
think
single mom, but there's single
from
dads
what
too.
the men were saying, they're very frustrated because they felt, you know, left out.
Left out.
I don't know what to do.
Right. And so then they just assume the role of being left out.
And it's all stereotyping, you know. They have to be the breadwinner. They have to be the one working and supporting, and but supporting in a different way, like with their family.
I like that.
And it's just giving everybody a voice, right? We need it. Even if there isn't a father figure in the home, we need, you know, male influence. We need female influence. We need those aunts and uncles, even if they're not in a bloodline. You know, it really does take a community. It takes a village. You know, when I think about my family growing up in Trinidad, when I actually went back and saw the house that my mom was born in, like you drive up this long dirt road for like an hour. But then when you get up there, everybody's like house is right beside each other.
Oh, cute.
Even another one of my cousins, there's 5 brothers. They live all beside each other, and the mother has the first house.
Cool.
And then you go down the road and it's the farm. And it just really shows you. When I came back here, I was like, I live 5 minutes from my sister, and my relationship's not like that.
Probably,
Right? So just kind of going back to some of those grassroots and back to, you know, our upbringings, that, you know, the tradition of them and how we used to do things, we could pull from that for sure.
Can we sort of then now, like, let's go, like, North Point Douglas, the North End, as we call it. I mean, it definitely has had its, you know, turmoil and troubles, and it'll be ongoing for a long time. But I mean, there is hope, though, and I mean, through the Boldness Project, what things have you seen, Diane, and what kind of vision do you have for the Boldness Project being right there in the heart of it?
Well, our families are incredibly inspiring, and they're incredibly positive and hopeful. And so, yes, like while there is lots of challenges in the North End, those are real, and we see it on the news, and you know, we see it in data and statistics. But I would argue that there's, again, whoever gets to decide what kind of data we're going to collect or what kind of statistics are we going to create, that's not coming from our families. And so the data and the statistics that get calculated really are telling the negative story, right? And that story does exist, but it's not the only story.
Exactly.
And so, you know, media tends to pick up on the negative narrative as well. And so we're just trying to create a more, like, we're trying to also tell the positive narrative, because there is a strong sense of community in the North End. People are proud to live there. People have lived there intergenerationally and will never move away from it. When we ask our community to, like, portray the neighborhood to us in their own words and in their own ways, they portray like the most positive aspects of community possible. They don't do the sirens and the graffiti and the chain link fence. They're doing people and pets and parks and love and
we
family.
need to see that, because this happens anywhere, whether you're in the States, whether you're in another country around the world. I mean, we all have those communities.
And the city's largest snowman, I must add, it's in that area. Like the city's largest, it's higher than the house.
And it's something, it's a sight to be seen. It's a sight to be seen.
Is it fashionable? Does it have like...
It actually has a scarf and a hat and everything, they
so
do a really
that
good
strong
job.
narrative just doesn't get as much airtime as the negative narrative, right? So we're really trying to push to make that stronger narrative. And when you get into that story space or that narrative, when you listen to the families, like, they're so hopeful, they're so resilient, they're so, like, the challenges they're facing every day, like, it's so inspiring. And I feel privileged that I get to be in that every single day, right? Like, it's not, because, you know, sometimes people say you work in the North End, like, oh my gosh, like, how do you do it every day? And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's the most inspiring place to be.
But also, I think that when we go to some of the more affluent areas of Winnipeg, you realize that there's massive disconnect. there's a lot of people. I know growing up, I knew all my neighbors, all the kids, we played together. My nieces are 1 and 4. I can't tell you a kid that they know on the street.
No. Right. Nobody goes out to play. No.
Nobody plays.
Yes.
You know?
Schools everywhere, in every community.
Yeah.
Even mine's been struck lately too.
Yeah. But you know, that sense of, again, that sense of community, that sense of collaboration, that sense of there is a story here, and we all have a struggle. Every one of us in this room right now has a struggle, but at the end of the day, we can all come out persevering, again, if we pull together, if we tie together, and if there's no judgment, because your struggle, my struggle, like, no one's worse off than the other. You know what I mean? Totally. Like, but if we can just pull together, we can do a lot, and I think that, you know, having the conversations, I'm just so excited that you're here, and that we get to have this dialogue.
What would it take for the Hue Crew to come to your community? I would love to have some women
Well, I'll tell
on,
you,
I'm
folks
sure.
like reached out to me, and I had no clue about the Hue Crew. I'm sorry to say that, but I didn't. But you know what? Like, and somebody I know reached out to me and said, "Hey, why don't you come?" And I'm like, "I don't know much about that, but I know you, and I trust you, so I'm going to come and come to this place you asked me to come to." And then I met you guys and just went, "Oh, well, this is kind of cool." So to me, it's that relationship thing. So it's already started, and so now if you want to come to the North End, if you want to come to Boldness, like, you can come anytime you want, because now we know each other, right? Yeah. So all it is a simple little ask, and like, we're on it. Let's go.
Okay.
No, I love that.
Yeah. No, and I think this is part of what we want to do too. I mean, it's you know, if we have to come to you, I think the story is even better. Instead of you sitting on a fancy couch and whatever, but this is nice. No, this is nice. This is very nice.
But to get to see the real life, right? The real life,
absolutely.
Day to day that you absolutely love, that you enjoy, that you like shout about proudly, you know, and I love that.
Are there any volunteer opportunities? I'm just, well, you know, it's the time, you know. Every time, every year, you know.
There absolutely is room for volunteers. And again, I talk about that as bridge building and as sort of trying to understand each other. And so sometimes the volunteer opportunity might be, well, we need help doing X, Y, Z. But sometimes the volunteer opportunity is just come and be in the circle and just hang out and let's just get to know each other, right? And I, you know, on that note, I will say, like, our community wants to they takes us pride and ownership in the doing of everything. And so, you know, they are the volunteers and they're the parents and they're, because most of us want to give, right? Again,
we want to feel good too. We want to feel good.
75% of the time we want to give.
That's right.
Like 25% of the time maybe we'll take, but we feel better when we're giving, I think, and that's
100%. And then it's a free take because you're giving, right? And so that's just
I like that.
It's true.
I think it's just, good all around. You know, and like for yourself, I guess this is a dream job.
You know what? I'm passionate about it, and I've been in this line of work since I got out of university, right out of high school, and my passion for it does not wane. Like, it's and I also say I feel very privileged because I think that my personal values and principles align, you know, 100% with my professional career and work. And I don't think everyone gets to say that. No. And so that's why I feel so excited and so passionate about the work I do.
But I just love, you guys, if you could be in the room with us, like, I can feel your energy. And,
so could I.
And again, it's such an important piece of it because there's so many people out there that are doing work that they can't get behind. Like, it's a paycheck, and even that is not cutting it. You know what I mean? So it's such an important piece to be able to actually believe in what you do, truly feel that impact of the work that you're doing in the community, and just, I really commend you in the work that you're doing.
Well, I'm sure the people do too. And I guess on that too, just kind of thinking on sharing stories. Did you ever have difficulty with somebody trying to get somebody to share their story?
Well, I think,
or is it just
yes? The short answer is yes, and I think that as we're in relationship with one another, and again, this cross-sector piece, like, we have different folks coming from all parts of the city, coming together and not having a similar experience, you know, in terms of background or ethnicity or just economics or what have you. And so when you get folks like that in the room together, the conversations can get tough, right? People will say things that no mean intentions, no ill intentions at all. It's just we're being who we are, and we just speak from our own experience, and that can be, you know, a bit jarring for some folks, right? And when we have folks who have questions, they want to know things, they're not sure how to ask it, but we've created a space for some safety to ask the question, and still the question comes out and you go, ooh, I don't know how I feel about that one, but here, you know, we've created the space, and so let's just have this conversation. So I would say that, you know, in trying to share our stories, sometimes like it requires a lot of bravery. Like we could try to create the safe space as much as possible, but it can't always be 100% safe. Right? So that's when we really talk about creating brave spaces and having courageous conversations, right? So again, we don't want anyone to feel unsafe, but we just ask you to be brave in the conversation. Right?
And that's the thing, is the experiences that we're having, if we don't communicate them, right? A boyfriend a long time ago told me this. Way back when. One of those way back ones. He wasn't a keeper, but this was a keeper. This statement. He left me some good advice.
Take one good thing and leave the rest.
Was that, you know, your life experiences are not for you, they're for you to communicate to others. And that has stuck with me for years, because a lot of times when we're going through something, we think, woe is me, right? But really the opportunity when you get to sit down with somebody and say, I have some wisdom I can add to that, right? Take it or leave it, but I have something to contribute. And I mean, that's what's happening when you guys get to have those bold, brave, courageous conversations, is this is what's going on, and this is what's real life for me. What do we do? But it's such a starting point, and it's so pivotal.
And when it's involving children, it's always a big thing. You know.
Well, and I, you know, and I sort of sometimes say, you know, I got such a hard job, right? It's like promoting babies and puppies, right? So, I mean, it's not hard to like ask people to get behind babies, right? I mean, that's sort of we all go, yes, of course, right? And so trying to tell the stories of how we can make it better for babies, like really listening to parents, and, you know, we have all the YouTube, like we have all the social media going on. And so really trying to capture, you know, what parents are saying about their kids. This passion you're here, like this is how we talk about our children, right? So parents, you cannot motivate parents anymore to you know, do better for their kids. Like they are fully motivated. That is not something we have to do. And it comes across in all the stories that they tell, and when we try to capture it in writing or in video or, you know, in pictures, like it just comes through like massively.
Well, and you know, and I guess there is that tough age group, right? The teens. And but like there's some
I think when we do intergenerational stuff, I don't know. Like, I mean, for sure there's some of that, but I think when we have the intergenerational stuff, I think people keep themselves in check, you know?
Correct.
I do.
So there's a website, there's a website we can go to for more info?
Oh yeah, we have all of it. Yeah, we're on the web, we have Instagram, you know, Facebook, we have all
YouTube
YouTube
the Boldness Project.
The Winnipeg Boldness Project.
The Winnipeg Boldness Project.
The Winnipeg Boldness Project.
Well, thank you so much, Diane.
Thank you.
Yes. So next time, Hue Crew.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers to the boldness.
Cheers.
Cheers to the boldness.